Mama, I swear I didn't do it. I was a virgin. I never betrayed you. I don't know how this pregnancy happened. Mama, please, come to my rescue.
Chloe and Anita had been inseparable since they started working as sales representatives at the everyday supermarket. Their bond was more than just friendship, it was sisterhood. Chloe, an orphan who had no family, had always considered Anita her only sister. No matter what, she was always there for her. When Anita's mother fell gravely ill and required urgent medical attention, Anita had run out of options. She had no money, and the hospital refused to continue treatment without payment. Desperate and heartbroken, she confided in Chloe, tears streaming down her face. Without hesitation, Chloe took out her entire salary and placed it in Anita's hands. "You know I take you as my sister, Anita. Since I am an orphan, you are my sister, and your mother is also my mother. I will always be here for you." Anita hugged her tightly, sobbing in gratitude. "Thank you, Chloe. I don't know what I would do without you." Their bond deepened after that day. Whenever Anita struggled financially, Chloe was always there. But everything changed when Oliver came into Chloe's life. One ordinary afternoon, while the two friends were arranging goods at the supermarket, a tall, handsome businessman named Oliver walked in. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his presence commanding attention. He had an air of wealth and power, the kind of man who could make any woman turn her head. Oliver was instantly drawn to Chloe. Her simplicity, kindness, and innocence captivated him. It didn't take long before they fell deeply in love, and in a matter of months, Oliver proposed. Their wedding was a grand affair, the kind Anita had only dreamed of. Chloe, once a simple supermarket worker, became the wife of a billionaire. Oliver adored her, showering her with luxury, designer clothes, expensive jewelry, exotic vacations, and a mansion that looked like a palace. Chloe was living a fairy tale, a life of comfort and ease. At first, Anita was happy for her friend. But soon, jealousy crept into her heart like a venomous snake. Anita began to compare their lives. She remembered how she and Chloe had been at the same level, struggling together, barely making ends meet. Now, Chloe was a billionaire's wife while she still hustled in the supermarket. Why does she get to have everything? Anita often asked herself bitterly. I was the one who introduced her to this job. I was the one who shared my problems with her. And now she's living a life of wealth while I remain stuck. She tried to suppress the jealousy, but it consumed her. Chloe, unaware of Anita's growing resentment, continued to support her. She still visited Anita, still helped her financially. When Anita's rent expired, and her landlord threatened to throw her out, Chloe gave her the rent money without a second thought. And when Anita dreamt of starting her own business but lacked the capital, it was Chloe who provided her with the money to start. She even invited Anita to her mansion, urging her to come and stay with her instead of struggling to pay rent. You are my sister, Anita. I want you to enjoy life too, Chloe told her one day as they sat in her luxurious living room, sipping fruit juice. But Anita's heart was already poisoned. It should be me, she thought. I should be the one married to Oliver. I should be the one enjoying this life. The more she saw Chloe happy, the more bitterness she harbored. She started distancing herself, making excuses whenever Chloe called. Instead, she spent her nights thinking of a way to take Chloe's place. Then, an idea came to her, an idea that would change everything. One evening, as Anita sat alone in her tiny apartment, she stared at herself in the mirror. I am beautiful too, she whispered, running her fingers through her hair. I deserve to be loved by a billionaire too. She thought about Oliver. He was a man who had everything. He could provide her with the life she had always dreamt of. But there was one problem: Chloe. If only Chloe were out of the picture. Anita smirked, a dangerous glint in her eyes. I will make Oliver see me. I will make him fall for me. And when that happens, Chloe will be nothing but a forgotten shadow in his life. With determination in her heart, Anita set her plan in motion. One Friday evening, Chloe invited Anita to spend the weekend at her mansion. Chloe, as kind and naive as ever, still saw Anita as her sister and wanted her to feel comfortable. You don't have to stay in that small apartment, Chloe told her cheerfully. You can always come here anytime you want. My home is your home. Anita smiled sweetly, but in her heart, she had other plans. She packed her best, most revealing dresses, determined to seduce Oliver. She had seen the way men looked at her before, and she was sure that Oliver wouldn't be able to resist her. That night, after dinner, Anita deliberately waited for Chloe to go upstairs to sleep. She then walked into the living room, where Oliver sat working on his laptop. She wore a silk nightdress that clung tightly to her curves. She slowly walked towards him, pretending to be shivering. Oliver, I feel so cold, she said in a soft voice, sitting close to him. Oliver barely looked up from his laptop. You should get a blanket, Anita, he said absent-mindedly. Anita was taken aback. She moved closer, leaning slightly so he could see the curve of her neckline. I just feel so alone, she continued, her voice laced with fake innocence. Oliver sighed and finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. Anita, it's late. Maybe you should go to bed. Anita clenched her fists, anger boiling inside her. How could he not see me? How could he ignore me like this? Realizing that her plan was failing, she quickly got up and stormed off to her room, feeling humiliated. The next morning, she made up an excuse and left the house earlier than planned. Months passed, and Chloe received exciting news: she was pregnant. Oliver was overjoyed. He had loved her deeply from the start, and the news of a child only strengthened their bond. He went out of his way to make sure Chloe was comfortable, pampering her with everything she needed. When Chloe gave birth to a baby girl, Sonia, Oliver showered her with gifts. He bought her a brand new luxury car as a push gift, telling her, "You have given me the greatest gift in the world, Chloe, our daughter. You deserve everything good in this life." Anita, hearing about the new car and all the gifts Oliver lavished on Chloe, burned with jealousy. That should have been me, she thought angrily. 2 years passed, and Chloe became pregnant again. By this time, Anita's jealousy had turned into full-blown hatred. She could no longer stand to see Chloe happy. If she weren't in the picture, Oliver would eventually move on, Anita reasoned. And when that happens, I will be the one to comfort him. I will be the one he turns to. With a heart full of darkness, Anita decided that Chloe had to be eliminated. One evening, she visited a local mechanic in a secluded part of town. She had already arranged for someone to tamper with Chloe's car brakes. The man she hired assured her that everything would be done discreetly. "It will look like an accident," he whispered. "No one will suspect a thing." Anita smirked. Perfect. A week later, Chloe was driving home from a hospital checkup. She was excited about the scanning results of the new baby growing inside her and that it was a baby boy, and she couldn't wait to share the news with Oliver. But as she approached a sharp bend on the highway, she pressed the brakes, and nothing happened. Panic set in as the car accelerated downhill. She pressed the brakes again, harder this time, but the car only moved faster. "No. No. Please stop." Chloe screamed, gripping the steering wheel as she swerved to avoid crashing into another vehicle. Everything happened in a flash. The car hit a barrier, flipped over twice, and then came to a crashing halt against a tree. Blood. Glass. Darkness. By the time emergency responders arrived, Chloe was barely breathing. She was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. Chloe was gone. Oliver was devastated. The love of his life, his Chloe, was dead. The news of her passing shattered him into pieces. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. At the funeral, Oliver stood like a lifeless man, staring at Chloe's coffin. Sonia, now 2 years old, clung to her father's leg, too young to understand what had happened. Anita stood a few feet away, dressed in black, pretending to grieve. But in her heart, she felt no sorrow, only anticipation. Now, Oliver will need someone to console him, she thought. And that someone will be me. She watched as Oliver held Sonia close, his face buried in his hands, crying like a broken man. Don't worry, Oliver, Anita thought with a smirk. I will be here for you. And soon, you will see that I am the woman you truly need. After Chloe's death, Oliver was a shadow of himself. His world had crumbled, and nothing felt the same. Every corner of the house reminded him of his late wife. The scent of her favorite perfume still lingered in the bedroom, her laughter echoed in his memories, and every time he looked at Sonia, he saw Chloe's face. But through his grief, there was one person who remained by his side, Anita. Anita played her role perfectly. She stepped in like a devoted family member, coming to the house every day. Oliver, you need to take care of yourself, she would say gently, bringing him food and making sure the house was always in order. She would wake up early, get Sonia ready for school, prepare her meals, and even do all the house chores. To Oliver, she appeared to be a blessing, a savior in the middle of his sorrow. I don't know what I would do without you, Anita, Oliver admitted one evening. Chloe was my sister, Anita said, feigning sadness. Sonia is my daughter now. I will always be here for both of you. Her words touched Oliver's heart. He began to see Anita in a different light. Slowly, his admiration for her turned into affection. One evening, after a long day at work, Oliver sat Anita down in the living room. Sonia was fast asleep upstairs. Anita, I've been thinking, he started. You have done so much for me and Sonia. I can see how much you love and care for her like she's your own. Maybe it's time I gave Sonia a mother again. Anita's heart raced with excitement. What are you saying, Oliver? She asked, pretending to be surprised. I want you to be my wife, Oliver said, holding her hand. Tears of joy filled Anita's eyes, not because she was emotional, but because she had won. Everything she had worked for, everything she had planned, had finally come to pass. Yes, Oliver, I will marry you, she said with a bright smile. Their wedding was simple, nothing compared to Chloe's grand ceremony. Oliver was still grieving, and though he had convinced himself that marrying Anita was the right thing to do, deep inside, he knew he didn't love her the way he loved Chloe. Anita, on the other hand, was filled with excitement. She was now officially Mrs. Anita Oliver, the wife of a billionaire. She had everything she had ever wanted: wealth, status, and the luxurious life she envied Chloe for. But soon, everything changed. At first, Anita continued her act, pretending to be a caring wife and stepmother. But the moment Oliver left the house for work, her true nature emerged. Sonia, now 3 years old, was too young to understand why her mother was no longer around. She still called out for Chloe sometimes, and it angered Anita. Your mother is gone. Stop calling her name. Anita snapped at her one morning. Sonia, confused and scared, began to cry. If you don't stop crying, I will lock you in the bathroom. Anita threatened. That was the beginning of Sonia's nightmare. Anita made sure to be the perfect wife whenever Oliver was around, always smiling, cooking his favorite meals, and playing the role of the caring stepmother. But the moment he left, she became a monster. She would punish Sonia over the smallest things. If Sonia spilled water, Anita would slap her. If she made noise while playing, Anita would lock her in a dark room. "You better not tell your father, or I will make you regret it," she would whisper coldly. Sonia was terrified of Anita. She wanted to tell her father, but every time she opened her mouth to speak, she remembered Anita's threats. One night, Oliver noticed Sonia was quieter than usual. "Princess, are you okay?" he asked, stroking her hair. Sonia hesitated, looking at Anita, who shot her a deadly glare from behind Oliver. "I'm fine, Daddy," Sonia whispered. Oliver sighed. He missed Chloe more than ever. If only she were here, Sonia wouldn't be so quiet. Meanwhile, Anita smirked. "Good girl," she thought. 14 years later, Sonia had always known that Anita didn't love her. The woman treated her like an outsider, a burden in her own father's house. But despite everything, Sonia never stopped trying to be good. She respected Anita, loved her younger siblings Harry and Ivy, the two children Anita had for Oliver, and did her best to keep the peace in the house. But none of it mattered to Anita. She despised Sonia, hated the way Oliver looked at her, the way he spoke of her with admiration, always comparing her to her late mother, Chloe. "Sonia reminds me so much of Chloe," Oliver would say with a soft smile. And those words burned Anita like fire. "As long as she's here, I'll never truly have Oliver's heart," she told herself. "I need to get rid of her." That was when the wicked idea formed in her mind. One evening, Anita prepared dinner for the family. She served Oliver and the kids their meals but took extra care with Sonia's food. She crushed sleeping pills into the soup and stirred it carefully, making sure it dissolved completely. "Sonia, come and eat," she called sweetly. Sonia, innocent and unsuspecting, sat at the dining table and ate her food. Within minutes, she felt drowsy. Her eyes grew heavy, and her body felt weak. "Are you okay, dear?" Anita asked, pretending to be concerned. "I feel so sleepy," Sonia mumbled, struggling to keep her eyes open. Anita quickly led her to bed, covering her with a blanket. "Rest, my dear," she whispered with a wicked smile. That night, Anita called Henry, a street boy she had paid to carry out her evil plan. "She's asleep. Do what you have to do," she instructed. Henry hesitated. "She won't remember anything, right? Just do it and get out." Anita snapped. Henry did as he was told and left. 2 weeks later, Sonia started feeling sick. She was constantly nauseous, weak, and dizzy. Oliver, worried, took her to the hospital for a checkup. After running tests, the doctor returned with a serious expression. "Mr. Oliver, your daughter is pregnant." Oliver froze. "What?" he roared. "That's impossible." Sonia's heart pounded. "Pregnant?" she whispered, confused. The doctor nodded. "She's about 2 weeks gone." Tears streamed down Sonia's face. No, this can't be." She turned to Oliver, shaking her head. "Daddy, I swear, I don't know how this happened. I'm still a virgin," she cried. Oliver's face twisted in anger. "Stop lying, Sonia," he shouted. "Who got you pregnant?" "I don't know." Sonia sobbed. "I swear, I have never been with anyone." Before she could explain further, Anita stepped forward, shaking her head in fake disappointment. "You see what I've been telling you, Oliver," she said, pretending to be heartbroken. "This girl is reckless. I have seen her sneaking around with boys, and now she doesn't even know who got her pregnant." "No, that's not true," Sonia screamed. "I swear, I don't know what happened." But Anita had already poisoned Oliver's mind. Oliver's chest rose and fell in rage. He looked at Sonia, the daughter he once adored, and now, all he saw was shame. "You have disgraced me, Sonia," he shouted. "And now you want to stand here and lie to my face." "I swear, Daddy, I don't know what happened," she sobbed. "Please believe me." But Oliver was blinded by anger. "Get out," he roared. Sonia gasped. "Daddy, no, please. If you can't tell me who is responsible, then you are no longer my daughter. Leave this house and don't come back." Anita smirked from behind him. Her plan had worked perfectly. Tears poured down Sonia's face as she realized her father had made up his mind. She turned and walked out of the house, pregnant, alone, and broken. The night was cold. Sonia had nowhere to go. She walked aimlessly through the empty streets, her tears mixing with the dust on her face. "What did I do to deserve this?" she thought, shivering. She staggered forward, but before she could take another step, a group of men appeared from the shadows. "Hey, beautiful," one of them sneered. "What's a girl like you doing out here alone?" Panic shot through Sonia's body. She turned to run, but before she could move, one of them grabbed her arm. "Let me go," she screamed. Just then, a deep voice rang out. "Hey, leave her alone." The men turned, and out of the darkness, a tall, strong figure stepped forward. He was young, maybe in his early 20s, with fierce eyes and a protective stance. "She's with me," the man growled. The gang hesitated before backing off and disappearing into the night. Sonia looked up at her mysterious savior. Who are you?" she asked weakly. The man extended his hand. "My name is Daniel, and I think you need help." "What is your name?" "Sonia," she replied, scared, and she ran away into the dark before the man could say another word. She had nowhere to go. No one to turn to. With nowhere else to sleep, she wandered the streets until she found an abandoned, uncompleted building on the outskirts of town. It had no doors, no windows, just cold concrete walls and a leaking roof. But at least it was shelter. She curled up on the dusty floor, wrapping her arms around her knees, trying to keep warm as the cold wind howled through the empty structure. "Why is this happening to me?" she whispered into the darkness. Tears rolled down her face as she thought about her father. The same father who once called her his princess, the same father who hugged her when she was afraid, had now abandoned her like a stranger. All because of Anita. "I didn't do anything wrong," Sonia sobbed. But no one was there to hear her cries. The next morning, Sonia found herself walking towards the cemetery, towards the only person who had ever truly loved her, her mother. She kneeled in front of Chloe's grave, her hands trembling as she touched the cold stone. "Mama, I swear I didn't do it," she cried. "I was a virgin. I never betrayed you. I don't know how this happened, Mama. Please, believe me." She sobbed uncontrollably, pouring out all the pain in her heart. "They threw me out, Mama. Daddy threw me out. He doesn't believe me." The cemetery was silent, except for the rustling of leaves in the wind. Sonia sat there for hours, hugging her mother's tombstone, as if hoping she would rise and take her away from this nightmare. She had no food, no money, no home. But she had to survive. She had a baby growing inside her now, an innocent child who didn't deserve to suffer. "I have to live, Mama," she whispered. "Even if no one believes me, I will live." With no other choice, Sonia began selling fruits by the roadside. She borrowed a small basket from an old woman who felt sorry for her, and every morning, she bought a few fruits from the market and set up by a busy street corner. Sweet oranges, ripe mangoes, fresh bananas, she called out to passing cars. It was humiliating. People who once knew her as Mr. Oliver's daughter now looked at her with pity, or worse, disgust. "Isn't that Sonia?" some whispered. The girl who got pregnant and couldn't even say who the father is. See how she has fallen, others laughed. Sonia kept her head down, refusing to let their words break her. Some days, she sold enough to buy herself a meal. Other days, she went to bed hungry. Nights in the uncompleted building were the worst. She curled up on the cold floor, wrapping a torn cloth around herself for warmth. The sound of rats scurrying in the dark kept her awake. Some nights, she cried herself to sleep. God, why am I suffering like this? She whispered into the emptiness. But no answer came. One afternoon, as Sonia sat on the roadside selling her fruits, she noticed a black SUV parked a short distance away. Inside the car, a man sat watching her. Sonia's heart pounded in fear. Was he a kidnapper? Or someone sent by Anita? She tried to ignore him, but every time she looked up, he was still there, watching her. Then, after what felt like hours, the man stepped out of the car. Sonia's breath caught in her throat. It was Daniel. The same man who had saved her from the gang the night she was thrown out. He walked up to her, his expression unreadable. Why are you here, Sonia? He asked quietly. Tears welled up in her eyes. Because I have nowhere else to go. Daniel stared at her for a long moment, then said, What happened to you? Who is responsible of your pregnancy? Sonia told him everything she is being through, and Daniel had pity on her and asked her to come with him. But Sonia refused, that she doesn't know him that much to just go with him. So Daniel gave her some cash and left and promised to come see her again. After hearing Sonia's heartbreaking story, Daniel couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to it. Something didn't add up. How could a girl who swore she had never been with a man suddenly become pregnant? How could her own father, a man who once loved her dearly, turn against her so easily? Daniel knew there had to be a deeper secret. But he had no evidence. So, instead of confronting anyone, he decided to investigate. He reached out to an old friend, Detective Mark, a sharp and relentless police investigator. Mark, I have a case for you. But I don't have proof yet. Tell me everything, Detective Mark said. Daniel explained everything he knew about Anita, Sonia, and the mysterious events that led to her being thrown out. I don't know how she did it, Daniel admitted. But I know Anita set Sonia up. She wanted her out of the house. Detective Mark rubbed his chin. I'll start looking into Anita's past. If she has skeletons in her closet, I'll find them. And so, the secret investigation began. Anita had never felt more victorious. With Sonia gone, there was no one to compete for Oliver's love and attention. No more hearing him say, Sonia reminds me of Chloe. No more watching as he spoiled her while her own children, Harry and Ivy, got less. Now, the house belonged to her. The family belonged to her. Oliver, still angry at Sonia's so-called shameful act, never mentioned her again. Anita smirked every time she watched Oliver play with Harry and Ivy. This is how it should have always been, she thought. But as much as she enjoyed her victory, there was one problem. Henry. It started as an occasional phone call. Madam, I need some money, Henry would say in his rough voice. Anita always sent him something small, just enough to keep him quiet. But the calls kept coming. One afternoon, while Anita was enjoying a spa day, her phone rang. She picked up lazily, expecting it to be a friend, but the moment she heard Henry's voice, her smile faded. Madam, I need money. Anita sighed in frustration. Henry, I have given you enough. You need to stop calling me. But Henry chuckled darkly. I don't think you want me to stop calling, madam. Because if I do, it will be to call your husband instead. Anita's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean by that? She snapped. Oh, you know exactly what I mean, Henry said. How do you think Mr. Oliver will react when he finds out that his dear wife planned the whole thing? That you drugged Sonia, that you paid me to touch her while she was unconscious? Anita clenched her fists. Henry, don't you dare. Then send me money. I don't have any right now. Henry laughed. That's too bad. Because if I don't get something by the end of the day, I might just walk into your husband's office and tell him everything. Anita felt her blood boil. You're blackmailing me. Call it whatever you want, madam. But I need that money. Before Anita could say another word, the line went dead. She stared at her phone, shaking with rage. That idiot, she hissed. Who does he think he is? From that day on, Henry's calls became more frequent. Madam, I need cash. I'm broke again. My landlord is on my neck. If you don't send money, I'll start talking. Every time Anita refused, Henry would remind her, You don't want Oliver to find out, do you? She started living in constant fear. At night, she tossed and turned, imagining what would happen if Oliver ever found out the truth. He would kill me. No, first, he would disgrace me, throw me out like I threw Sonia out. Then he would kill me. The thought sent chills down her spine. But she couldn't keep giving Henry money forever. She needed to find a way to silence him, permanently. Anita picked up her phone and dialed a number. Hello. A deep voice answered on the other end. I need you to take care of someone for me, Anita whispered coldly. Who? His name is Henry. I will send you his picture and some details about him. I want him gone, forever. The hitman chuckled. Consider it done. Henry was sitting in his small apartment, drinking beer, when he heard a knock at the door. Who is it? He called out. No answer. He frowned and stood up slowly. Just as he reached for the handle, the door burst open, and a muscular man charged in, a knife in his hand. Henry's eyes widened in terror. What the hell? He shouted, stumbling back. The hitman lunged at him, but just before he could strike, freeze! A loud voice rang out, followed by the sound of gunshots in the air. Within seconds, police officers stormed the room, weapons drawn. Drop your weapon. The hitman froze. He turned, shocked, realizing he had walked straight into a trap. Because Detective Mark had been watching Anita all along. Both Henry and the hitman were dragged to the police station. At first, they refused to talk. But after hours of interrogation, they broke down. Henry confessed everything. Anita had drugged Sonia and paid him to violate her. She framed Sonia to get rid of her. She sent the hitman to kill him to silence him. The hitman remained silent for a long time. But after Detective Mark pressured him, he finally spoke. This isn't the first time Anita hired me, he said, his voice cold. What do you mean? The detective asked. The hitman smirked. Years ago, she paid me to tamper with Chloe's car brakes. The room went silent. Detective Mark's eyes widened. You're saying Anita killed Chloe? The hitman nodded. Yes. She wanted her dead so she could take her place. That was all the police needed. Within an hour, police officers stormed Oliver's house. It was late evening when Oliver heard a loud knock on his door. When he opened it, he was shocked to see police officers standing outside. Mr. Oliver, we have something important to tell you. The moment they told him the truth, his world shattered. No, that can't be true, Oliver whispered. We have the confessions on record, the officer said. Your wife drugged and framed your daughter. And she murdered your first wife, Chloe. Oliver staggered back, feeling like he couldn't breathe. I sent my daughter away, for something she didn't do. His hands clenched into fists. Just then, Anita walked in, yawning. "Oliver, what's all this noise?" she started, but froze when she saw the police. The moment their eyes met, she knew. "No, no, no, no," she whispered. "Anita Adams, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and the murder of Chloe Adams." The officers grabbed her arms. "No. This is a lie." Anita screamed, struggling. Oliver's face was stone cold. "I trusted you," he said quietly. "And you destroyed my family." Tears rolled down Anita's face. "Oliver, please. I did it for us." But Oliver had already turned away. As the police van drove off, he whispered, "I hope you rot in prison." After days of searching, Oliver finally found Sonia. She was selling fruits by the roadside, looking thin, weak, and tired. His heart broke at the sight of her. "Sonia," he whispered, his voice shaking. Sonia looked up, and the moment she saw him, her eyes filled with tears. "Daddy," she whispered. Oliver fell to his knees. "I'm sorry, my baby," he sobbed. "I failed you." Sonia froze. This was the same father who had thrown her out. And now, he was kneeling before her? "Daddy, you didn't believe me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I know," Oliver sobbed. "And I will never forgive myself. But please, come home." Sonia stared at him, tears rolling down her cheeks. She had every reason to hate him. But deep down, she still loved him. With tears in her eyes, she fell into his arms. "I missed you so much, Daddy." Oliver held her tightly. "And I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Anita was sentenced to life in prison. Henry and the hitman also received long prison sentences. Sonia returned home, but things were never the same. She had suffered too much, lost too much. But with time, and with Oliver's love, she began to heal. And in the end, justice had been served. Or if you were Oliver, would you have seen the signs that Anita was evil earlier? What red flags did Oliver ignore? Do you think Anita deserved a life sentence, or should she have received a worse punishment? If you could change one part of this story, what would it be and why? Kindly share your thoughts on the comments section, and bye for now.